Our sponsors, I guess I need to go this way. Yes, can we get to the next one? My clicker is not working. I'm having clicker issues. So we're actually being sponsored here tonight by our friendly folks at Westernized, who are offering this space and the food here for us tonight. We have some beverage sponsors as well, including Moreno Sparkling Wine, and Randy's over in the back corner pouring from our friends from Moreno. Always festive to have champagne at a party, so we really appreciate them being here. Lagunitas is another sponsor of ours, and we really appreciate their support through the years, as is Nas Energy Drink. Well, thank you. And Brandon, is Brandon going to say a few words? This event is being co-hosted with the Producers Guild of America. And we're thrilled to actually be partnering with the Producers Guild. They're one of our favorite partner groups. We partner with a number of other organizations in the city, and so I know that we'll get Brandon or Susan, who are both here, to come up and say a few words about the PGA and the Northern California. Oh, here's Brandon. Brandon is not only co-founder and president of Westernized.
Executive producer.
Executive producer.
President, whatever I need to be.
He is also the head of the Northern California branch of the PGA. So, Brandon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Great to see such a big crowd. So the Producers Guild, we are a non-profit trade organization that protects, promotes, and represents all members of the producing party, whether you're working in film, television, or in new media. So if any of you folks are in that category, I definitely encourage you to come talk to myself or to Susan. She's up there, she knows I was looking for her. And some of the benefits of the Producers Guild are seminars, events like this. We have new media peer groups. We have the Producers Guild Awards, the Digital VIP. We have networking opportunities, mentorship programs. The list goes on, and there's some literature on the back table over there for everyone to check out. And I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's event. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brandon. So I have to say I'm really excited about tonight's event, and I hope the rest of you are as well. You know, it's a tenor of our times that we're talking about collaborative stories, myths and memes, and while some of these things have been, of course, myths have been with us forever, there seems to be a new furor around these categories and a resurgence of examination into these. And the job that my co-founder at transmediasf, Maya Zuckerman, did in putting together this panel is just phenomenal. So I'm really excited, and nobody could have really done this better, because Maya not only is passionate about myths and mythology, she's also passionately engaged in creating some and producing some herself. So in addition to her work for clients like Salesforce.com and Deloitte & Touche, she's also worked on some really very deep mythological campaigns, including campaigns for Deepak Chopra. She's working on a project with The Fifth Sacred Thing, which is really exciting. We're looking forward to that getting out there, and Saltwater. So in addition to everything else that she's done and that you'll hear about tonight, Maya is going to be leading the Q&A, and so feel free to ask her questions. And without further ado, we're going to get the evening started. I'll turn it over to Maya. Thanks, everyone.
See if I can do this with too much technology. So I started this whole curation of this month with actually a pastiche. This is my idea of stealing somebody else's really great idea. Gary Hayes created a map a few years ago, and I decided to recreate it by myself, and it's the map of the transmedia universe that it is today. From the submarines of context, to the ships of story, to the robots of dawn, and by the way, the creator of that robot is here in the crowd. Where is Justin? And the idea of creating where this map of media is right now, because it's not the media of our grandfathers and grandparents. It's a media that is evolving, but it's also going back to the way things were. So we used to tell stories like this. We used to sit around the campfire, and we used to have an immediacy of reaction from our audience, and our co-creators, because as a storyteller, you'd have ideas from the crowd, and you have people shouting out, and that's how we actually had all of our history being told for thousands of years. Now, this is the way we tell stories in one day. This is a map of interactions, 24 hours of interactions around the world. I think this is phenomenal. I think we're actually really going back to that campfire. The immediacy is here. When something happens, we get an immediate feedback loop. And it's really interesting as creators, as curators, as business owners, as brands, how to actually engage with this immediacy. And I think that's part of what we're going to discuss tonight, and the wonderful esteemed speakers that I have all work with that kind of audience engagement. So let's start with our elders. I think the two elders that I chose for tonight, I think really are the dears of this whole space, and this is of course McLuhan. And I think in transmediasf we've been saying that we're the medium and the message, like he is. And it's very interesting how, if he was alive today, he'd be completely a transmedia creator. He'd probably be running big campaigns. One of my favorites, I don't know if you've ever seen the Annie Hall, his appearance in Woody Allen's movie, where Woody Allen actually breaks the fourth wall and brings him out to the front and to say, you know nothing of my work. So yeah, definitely I love him. I think he's amazing. And I actually did a little, this is a part of a blog that I wrote for the Transmedia Coalition, and it's bringing the McLuhan tetrad that one of my wonderful speakers, Mitch, actually reminded me about his tetrad, and actually created a transmedia one. And the interesting thing about the tetrad and why it's so now, like was written a year ago, I think, is because of the immediacy of it. The tetrad tries to actually explain a medium, in this case transmedia, and how it enhances, retrieves, obsoletes, and reverses any kind of story, any kind of medium, all at the same time. So the idea is, you're reading this, but you need to read the whole thing at the same time now. And I think that kind of definition of nowness that McLuhan was trying to convey really works with where we are right now with media, where we are with myths, where we are with the way content is being distributed. I think it's really interesting. That's why I kind of took on a little experiment in Photoshop a few hours to create this. My other favorite, and I think a lot of people's favorites, is Mr. Campbell, the Grandpa Joe. And I was actually looking, I was Googling, because I didn't know, I was like, maybe I should come up with something, but I was like, somebody else came up with a meme for all these people, and of course I found some great ones. And if probably everybody knows that actually Lucas asked Mr. Joseph Campbell to sit down and actually show him what the hero's journey is, and actually they wrote down Star Wars exactly with the hero's journey, with Campbell helping him. So really, Campbell should get him in check. I also have one of my favorite sentences, I think a lot of people's, Campbell's sentence, follow your bliss. So I have one of our dear friends here who actually did a wonderful TED talk about follow your bliss and where's the beat. So definitely check that out, because it actually even expands this whole universe. So the reason I chose this slide to kind of continue this conversation is that it will take you about 10 seconds to understand it without me explaining anything, right? Does anybody don't understand this pastiche, this idea? Great. But this is exactly the idea. It's a little bit of wording and it's a little bit of fonts, and we get it. We don't have to think about it too much. The feedback loop is so fast that we know it, we're all in the same conversation, and we all are knowing where this is going to. And that's why I chose this one. Again, mythology, we think we know what mythology is, we think we know where mythology is going. We're recreating the same archetypes, but actually I don't think we know anything. And that is where I believe we're starting to get stuck in the same kind of rotation of myths and memes again and again and again, that everything is self-referencing the other thing. So, I'm going to point it out. The guy's talking about the guy, Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka from the 1970s one. is making fun of our knowledge of mythology. But he's actually, there's so many different levels of what we understand here that this is mythology, I think, for me. This is we're creating an archetype. He's a jester who's laughing back at us at our knowledge. So he's our hero's journey in a very quick, instant moment of understanding we're all in on the joke. And this one. I mean, if this is mythology and creation at a moment, notice, the speed of the occurrence of this, I think this is one of the first times that it really went very fast. From the spraying of the kids to all these different artistic explosions of this officer, to I even saw him on t-shirts spraying butterflies on people. You know, it's become so crazy. And I think that's where we're going. I think that's a very big question is where do we go from here? Now that we've put our big mentor character, a modern mentor character of Yoda with our oppressor from our mainstream, what happens next? So that's a big question for tonight. So we have 3 amazing speakers tonight. The first one, is Mitch Schultz. Mitch began his life journey in Memphis, Tennessee, and has since called Texas, Minnesota, Colorado, and New York City as his home. From early age, his love of art, music, mythology, and anything curiously unusual filled his path, including collaboration with Doris Roberts, synthetic pictures, and development of hybrid collective spectral alchemy. Mitch, will you join us?
We go back. Should we get started?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for making it out. Thanks, Maya, and thanks to our host here tonight. It feels great to be here. Just came in from Austin, Texas, and the weather's great, so thank you for bringing that forward. So my talk tonight, recoding mythology, transmedia to transbeing. How many people in the audience have heard of DMT, the spirit molecule? It's a recent documentary that came out. Okay. This is what kind of kicked it off for me. DMT, the spirit molecule, became a life's work and energy that I just had to dump everything into, but it also completely changed my life, personally, spiritually, as well as an artist. And this is when I started to ask the questions of how can we recode mythology that's going to be inclusive of everyone on the planet. And they don't have to be separate, and we don't have to throw them out. Give them their credence and put them together. And I think that with this new technology that's been developing, the internet, all of our different devices, I love the time. Thank you, Maya.
Beautiful. I know, give me 2 minutes
Perfect. Really starts to give us the chance to connect with people on a much broader scale, share ideas, and hopefully start to understand what our new value systems are in modern times. So, I get the question of who are you and what do you do? And I'm constantly asking myself the same question. I guess we could say I'm a transmedia storyteller. I like to think of myself as a culture hacker too. And it's about tinkering with culture, not to break it, but to fix it or make it something new. As well, I feel like I've done my academics, counterculture, filmmaker, writer, and everything in between, from a PA on the set to producer and everything. So it's a combination of things, especially in this transmedia world. It cannot be locked down to just one specific thing. And those of you that do work in the mediascape, I'm sure you understand what that is, especially in the independent world. So. All right. So like I said, the DMT, the spirit molecule film, is what really changed a lot of things for me. The transformation came very quickly. At the same time, it has been a developing process for myself and also for my work. Let me ask you another question. How many people are familiar with DMT? Or should I ask that first? Okay, all right. Briefly, what it is, DMT is a compound. It's a very simple compound that comes from tryptophan, naturally produced in your bodies, all over nature as well, plants and animals, but it's the strongest psychedelic. It takes people to other dimensions. So they say, so we're trying to figure out, talking to aliens, talking to entities, and also brings pretty regularly a mystical experience that comes along with that. And it really changes your paradigm, or challenges your paradigm. You have to reconsider everything that you thought was real, and everything that you thought was right, and everything that you thought was the way to move forward. All of that all of a sudden gets challenged. And that's definitely what happened to me, and it started to change all aspects of my life. Just a simple thing of opening a door for somebody and giving somebody a smile. That right there to me can hack culture in some ways. So then I start looking at this mediascape and the internet and the connectivity that we have at our disposal today. There's a lot of utopian aspects that are built into that. At the same time, I think we see a lot of the issues and problems that go along with that. But I think there's a way that we can start to harness that and utilize that power and that development to start to pull in some of these ideas that have maybe been hidden to the rest of the world, sort of pull them in and see what they can teach us as a Western culture, or pulling from other parts of the world that can expand our knowledge base, expand our perception and our view on the entire world, which I, again, believe makes a new mythology, gives us something new to look at the world with. So during this process, I started to come up with what I found, and this does kind of tap into the tetrad here, a 4-part manifesto that starts to give people an entry point into how we can redefine our mythologies and our ways of being. That starts with consciousness. And it's that conscious awareness of, all right, who am I? How did I get here? What am I doing? But knowing that you are a being that is alive and well and able to interact, and it's a miracle that we are here. And how are you taking that out into the world and sharing that with other people? Moving from that, once we come back from that kind of self-awareness, what is this 3D environment that we're living in? What is nature? And how are we fully connected to it? What are we doing to grow our food? How are we treating animals? How are we treating each other? These are all important things that I think sometimes we can just kind of get lost in the day-to-day grind, and we kind of push that stuff off to the side, but it can be those simple little things that can make a huge difference. The next part is their representation. Once we have that conscious awareness, we recognize that within ourselves, we take that back out in the world. How are we representing that? Whether that be through music, painting, dance, everything in between, whatever that specialty is or whatever drives you, how are you sharing that with the world? And the last part of this manifesto and kind of the focus is mythology and language, and the power of language that feeds into these mythologies and these stories that really dictate everything that we do in our lives. Seems like a very simple thing, but I think, again, a lot of us kind of lose track on how a lot of these traditions have ruled us for the last 2,000 plus years. Excuse me while I take a drink of my wonderful beverage from our sponsor. Transmedia. Get that one. All right. Get a couple of things there. I'm going to go forward one if I may. Here we go. It's about there. So I believe there's this open source mythology or approach to mythology that we can take. Looking at those 4 previous sections that I just talked about, how do we start to tap into this technology, share ideas with one another, and be able to open this thing up, see what the similarities are between these different traditions. How do they represent love? How do they represent God? How do they represent nature? What are the similarities there? What are the differences? And why are there differences? What also I think we're starting to see with this technology is we look back into the past, we start to see that our vision has widened a little bit. We have a little bit of a scope that is much broader than we had 5 years ago, much more if we go back a whole century. But there's an ability there to look back, hopefully learn from whatever mistakes we may have made, look at the positives that came out of whatever that was, and then how we can hopefully take that into the future, again, with an open source approach to get people to start collaborating, talking together and not pushing everything off to the side. It's important that everybody's story is told. And this is where I think it comes into the power of individual stories. You know, how are we telling our own story to help build this bigger collective? So we came back to this transmedia idea. And this open source mythology, what is it that activates people, that brings audiences together and brings communities together, and then also gives them the power to go do something about that, whatever that issue may be. Who are these activators? I would imagine there are a lot of us in this room that are activators, and what are we doing to participate in that dialogue and to create this new mythology? Maya set me up for this one here. I won't go into too much of, well, I won't go into anything on McLuhan right now, but for those of you that haven't spent much time with his work, I highly recommend it. The man was definitely a visionary, saw things way before it happened, and he could have easily been the contemporary today, as Maya said, to really write this and open up the idea of the tetrad. These 4 projects that are listed here are the base of the general Mythify Manifesto, as we call them. So DMT, the spirit molecule, is about consciousness. Again, giving us that awakening or a sense of other broaderness. Broaderness, is that a word? Grounded being is the second part of this, and this is going to be looking at sustainability. In general, just, again, how are we growing our food? How are we treating animals? What are we doing in this 3-dimensional space to make sure that it is a sustainable environment? Global Beat Fusion is going to be the art piece. And what we're doing here is looking at the computer as the first global folk instrument. And all of the musicians around the world now are essentially using the computer in some way, shape, or form to share their traditional mythologies and their traditional music. And so we kind of see that travel around the world and then how it's implemented back into the digital space to share with the modern world. And the last one is the open source reality. And that is going to be touching on language, just Campbell's story stuff, and then getting into McLuhan of what all this means, or potentially means, because we just don't know, but we do have the tetrad to kind of look at possibilities. So this is kind of the basis of Mythify. Mythify is an experience that we're setting up. It's you want to call it just an interactive experience, but it's a transmedia experience. And what we're doing with all of our projects is taking this open source approach to try to broaden this mythology. So we are putting out all of our content via Creative Commons, sharing it with our community, and asking people to go make their own stories with it as well. There's so much content that sits there unused. And as a filmmaker, I'm sure many of you probably know, we use 1% of our interview footage from our interviews in the DMT film, and there's so much great content there, I couldn't imagine just letting it sit there in my vault. How do we get that thing out there? And how do these bigger stories, or even more stories, start to tell the bigger narrative? Doing good? 4 minutes, okay. So what we're doing with this Mythify experience is we have these 4 entry points set up. So we have mind, and then underneath each one of these there are 3 different sections. Mind is for the consciousness or the DMT aspect, or the conscious aspect. We go into eco, and that's anything kind of earth-based, whether it be mineral, plants, or animals. Muse is the third part of that. Anything that is creative, any sort of representation that you're looking at in the world and trying to represent it in some sort of artistic approach. And then the last one is going to be our ethos section, and that's how we started to define what our value systems are in the modern world. I think we all have our individual value systems, and a lot of them have been based off of, well, I would say some falsities that we've been fed through the media and through different power organizations over time, but I think that's starting to shift, and this ground-up or this bottom-up approach is really starting to be the one that is telling the stories, the actual true stories. So I'm going to run through just really quick. On top of the other 3 films from the manifesto, besides the DMT one, we have 6 other films. And Marcy, I hope I'm not speaking out too early here, but I'm going to just throw it out there. Just run through a few of these. The Origins of Consciousness was a tour that we did over in Australia earlier this year with Graham Hancock and Dennis McKenna, covering everything from psychedelics to original tribal stories, Grant work looking at cave paintings and what sort of representations were there from our early ancestors and what do they mean? Essentially, what do they mean? Recoding the Transformation is going to be looking at Culture Festival and Transformational Culture Festival. What's happening on the edge there? You know, who are the people that are attending these festivals and what are they getting out of it? Who are they in the real world, if you will, and who are they when they come to the festivals, and how do those two things merge? Liberation movement. Grant, a resurrector here, started heavyweight dub champion and has had some major awakenings in his own work and is starting to shift now into kind of global musical experience where they're pulling in tube and throat singers, Icaros from South America, a variety of different instruments that they're creating themselves. And seeing again how that plays out in a personal story but also on a global scale as well. Reconnecting humanity. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, he had a vision of statute of responsibility. For us to have liberty, he thought, we needed to have a bookend, and that had to have responsibility for one another to actually have liberty. So this is underway. They're trying to raise their money now, and this will be sitting off the coast of San Diego, a 300-foot statue, the one on the left here with the two hands. It's like that picture up there. Now, we have not officially started on the Tibet Oral History Project, but I've been lucky to come in contact with, Marcy, do you mind if I call you out? Can you wave to everybody? Marcy has started this wonderful organization, I think roughly a decade ago, after a human rights presentation that went to the Dalai Lama. Stop me if I'm wrong here, Marcy. About how children were still being treated in Tibet. And one of the questions that Marcy asked was, what can we do to make this a different story and to really help? And I think the Dalai Lama's response was to record as many Tibetan elders' stories that we can. And these were people that were part of the original Chinese invasion, followed the Dalai Lama out. And as many of us know, it's very tragic, continues to happen, but this is a culture that is extremely rich on many levels. And 170 interviews to date, I believe, is where we are. The Library of Congress is just going to host this thing out. And so there's a lot of potential with that, and we're really excited to potentially start moving forward with that one and starting to share that knowledge. And again, in a transmedia space, beyond just, here's the documentary, what are all these different interviews, and what is the importance of each one of these stories that fits into the broader culture? Briefly on a D here, this one is going to be loosely taking the framework from spiral dynamics, if anyone's familiar with spiral dynamics and kind of the map of consciousness. Treating this one more as a koyaanisqatsi. It's going to be a visual exploration, trying to tell the humanity story. So finally, because I know my time is running out, my call to action, as we're starting to build these things, is to start encouraging people to be part of this process. Once we start putting our media out there, we want people to get activated. We want them to go out and see what's important to them from this story. How do they utilize that? How do they put that into a new context, reference it to something else, find new importance in it, and share it with the world? I encourage people to become spiritual alchemists. Get rid of rule sets. We can make our own rule sets. We don't need the rule sets either. This is a world of possibilities. There are so many things that we can tap into, and we have been kind of contained in some ways, but again, I think that's opening up, and it's really on us to go tell those personal stories and make the difference on the local level. We cannot wait for others to do it, of course. And beyond that, I think that's kind of it. I really hope to connect with all of you, and we'll have our Mythify site up probably in 2 months. If you have not seen DMT, the Spirit Molecule film, I highly encourage that. It's a good base point for where we're working from. All these projects are socially conscious, and again, putting them out open source, we really hope that starts to tell this larger mythology. So, thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mitch. So now we go to our next wonderful speaker, John McAdoo. John is a founder of City Mystery, a game design company that provides strategy, narrative and implementation for games known by several names: ARGs, transmedia, and mission-based games. So City Mystery was a Webby honoree for Ghost of Chance, a game sponsored by the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the first game to be sponsored by any museum anywhere. John?
Games have been called by various names. When I started about 6 years ago, they were ARGs, ARGs, alternate reality games, and then they became they morphed into transmedia, which I thought was a great leap for media people and would be more palatable for media people. And then I'm sort of working on ARGs morphing into transmedia, and basically the basic unit is mission-based games. I want to take players out of the game into the real world to complete missions and bring them back into the game. So that, and I'll show you something of the process. So essentially what we're doing in my definition of transmedia is that you blend as much media as you possibly can, and each medium is equally weighted. There is no anchor medium, and it flows. The story, the narrative, the action of the game flows through as many media as you possibly can come up with. And as I said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the players to move away from their screens, from their consoles, and employ tablets and employ their phones to be able to actually go out and complete missions. In my games, anything that you do that is attached to the game, the narrative of the game, you have to present to everyone else who's playing the game. And the whole object of these games is just to move the game forward. And so what I mean by getting people out into the real world is that, well, for instance, this woman was completing a mission. She was on vacation in Easter Island, so the game existed everywhere and anywhere, which is a very McLuhan-like thought. The thing about McLuhan that really got to me, he talked about acoustic space. And for some reason that has stayed with me since I first read Understanding Media, is that this notion that it was everywhere, it was all encompassing, it wasn't just sitting there and looking in that direction, it could be anywhere, and these games can be anywhere. So this one, my point is that how we use missions, which is the basic building block of our games, is that the more you do for the game, the more you unlock the story of the game. And this was our first one for the Smithsonian, and it was a ghost story, and it began this way. Essentially, a nearly naked man walked into and suddenly appeared at a convention of mostly geeky people. And I did it because I wanted a sumo, but the sumo agent in LA was getting a fortune for his sumo people. So this convention took place in Boston, and so I started calling gym rats, and I finally found this man is Craig Torres. He was Mr. New England, 2006, 2007. This game started in 2008. Over his heart was a tattoo, and the tattoo, this was great to see, because I was standing sort of like over there with his bathrobe, and he was in a posing strap. And they surged forward as soon as he appeared, and they started doing what he's doing, and you're doing, just taking pictures of every inch of him. And what they found was this iconic image. And that iconic image, also this was pre-tweeting, so a Flickr stream started almost instantaneously. So we had another medium involved, and all the pictures that they had taken appeared on Flickr. It took them several hours to eventually get to this iconic image, which is part of the Smithsonian collection. And it introduced them to a notion of a ghost story. And there were ghosts involved, and they were making mischief. And the mischief that they were making was that they had gone to the Smithsonian site, the most institutional institution on the planet, and they had inverted the typeface. So if you clicked on the typeface, you got to this, which was our first site. And our first site, we had to cancel this out because it's not live anymore. We asked our participants to do two things. We wanted, that image, by the way, is called a lover's eye. And the largest collection of them, it resides in the Smithsonian. So we asked our players to send in pictures of their lover's eye. And it could be a pet, it could be whatever you wish to ascribe as your lover's eye. And we also asked them to call in and add their voice to a ghostly incantation. I used the one for Macbeth, and it's double, double, toil and trouble. And you can still call this number and you hear this eerie wave of double, double, toil and trouble. It got so weird and eerie. And essentially, we got hundreds of people sending in their lover's eyes, and some of them are just extraordinary. And somebody sent in Hal. But they really worked on it. And suddenly, what I was talking to you, Scott, about, is suddenly your audience is not an audience anymore. They are working for you. They are working for the game. They are participants. They've changed. Okay. And we had captured their cell phone numbers. If you opt into the game, you give it. We had captured their email addresses. So,
of course, our great success was in Washington, D.C., but that was before Lincoln. I would have given him a live Larry Flynn. John was such a sawdust.
okay, so that's a ham. You remember our bodybuilder? He was the most recent incarnation of the ghost, who was a ham actor from 1855. And he died, 4 of these people died on the same night. And the part of the game is to find out more about them so you can honor them, so that you can free them from haunting and you can free the Smithsonian from being haunted. Because we had your cell phone number, this ghost, who was live with a processed voice, could call you. And you then had the responsibility of posting that audio, that ghost called, onto the game site. And you could create your own ghost sightings, which is what this video did. And it appeared on Facebook, on in-game character sites. A ghost is with us. Missions can be delivered by telephone, tablet, and laptop. So they're pervasive. And this is the transmedia part of transmedia storytelling. So it's all about engagement and sharing what it is that you've done for the game to keep the game moving forward. Again, this was a mission from our second Smithsonian game. And I also want to say that the museums have been, especially the Smithsonian and the Luce Center, way out ahead of the curve. Because some of the work that I've seen here in previous meetings have been based on franchises of television shows or something like that, expanding what already exists. What the Smithsonian was able to do was to take it on faith, partly because I have gray hair. But they allowed me to just start telling a story in this brand new way. And I look at my museum work as complete proof of concept that you can do it, and you can attract thousands and thousands of people to do it along with you. So you're all moving the game forward. This is another example of a mission. We ask people to digitally insert themselves into this painting. I like the one in the middle because she actually texturized herself and really made herself part of it. And now from the sublime of Mr. Schultz, which is very, very necessary, to the very practical. What is the sponsorship model? Where's the money? And the money remains as old as radio and television. It's a sponsorship model. And the sponsorship is different. This time around, you're not going to sponsor the story. That's TV and radio. You're going to sponsor what people do for the game. you're going to sponsor the missions. So in this one, the proposition, the mission is get yourself invited to someone's house for dinner, sing for your supper, and have your host take you. Do it, and then you post it. Okay? But then you want to bring your host a present for having sponsored your performance. So you bring a bottle of champagne, and you co-sponsor with wine.com. And the game becomes a point of sale. You can make a sale in the game itself, and in the sponsorship, the mission tells the brand story. So with wine.com and with champagne, you're telling the brand story, but you're advancing the game as well. This one, these are all real missions that we did for our second game. Narrate your route to work as if you are a professional sportscaster calling a football plays. And you videotape yourself doing this, or you're the first-person shooter. And if you use any of the For Dummies products about football or coaching or anything like that, and the point of sale, you get additional points and you rise in the game. So you see how sponsorship can work. This is another one where, again, you're offering point of sale. You're doing it as fancifully as any 20-second commercial on TV, except what you're sponsoring is the fun that people are having, and your product is the way they're having the fun. So in this one, WebEx invites you to form a network of players in Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Baltimore to bake a cake. You're doing something silly, but you're applying it to an actual sponsorable brand. So some of our games. This one is the first one I talked about, which is Dose of a Chance. And I won't click on any of these, but these are all the different media that we did use. I had a calligrapher calligraph a 19th century hand, a male hand and a female hand. We had real letters, so distressed paper. We mailed them to players that we liked. We chose a player, we snail mailed him, and then he had to post it on the blog that was dedicated to this game so that everyone could share in it. We had the make things. This one made the fortune cookie as predictor of imminent doom. Because we asked for things of imminent doom. And we also were giving them a show at the Smithsonian, but when the game ended, they had a dedicated show to all the things that they had made. On the lower right-hand corner, this man's a forensic anthropologist, and I went to him he's at the National Natural History Museum on the Mall in Washington, and I said, I need a dead character. Oh, what do you need? Well, she's 24-year-old African-American, a runaway slave. She was hit by a train. He said, I've got it. I'll find the corpse. Because the Smithsonian has a room that was donated by a surgeon in Philadelphia who had nothing but bones, corpses, and he fit one together for me. Again, the people who attended the live events, our games have live events which creates theatricality in the games. So we had about 25 to 50 people who attended the autopsy. They took pictures of it, they posted it, everyone shared in it, it moved the game forward. And we also use cell phones to do this well, cell phones. Colonial Williamsburg, which is in Virginia, Californians don't know much about it, they know Knott's Berry Farm, but Colonial Williamsburg is this very famous thing that was started by the Rockefellers, and it was one of the revolutionary cities. They have live events. This was a game, I should have said that Ghost of a Chance ran for 6 weeks. This game runs for an hour and a half. Involves the same amount of media, by and large texting, because on a 4-day spring break, holiday time, 6,000 players generated 50,000 texts. So they're really engaged. They're also making things and doing things as they go along. This is another discovery of mine. Most of the games when I started, when they were called ARGs, were single sponsored. The networks 60 years ago figured out, oh hell, why do that? You make more money if you have multi-brand sponsors. And that is the proof of concept of Fion, which is really built around a graphic novel. We don't have to see it, but it's just missions sponsored by 5 separate brands, essentially. Brewster Kahl's Internet Archive and the Smithsonian Encyclopedia of Life, which some of you may know about, which is attempting to digitize all natural matter on the planet. And the Luce Information, the Luce Center, Luce Foundation, and University of Maryland's College of Information. Each sponsored the Smithsonian most of all, because they were the prime, they were the lead sponsor. They sponsored several dozen missions, all having to do with their brand, all having to do with their collections and their work. So transpose that, extrapolate that to cars, food, clothing, and institutions. These games aggregate. You aggregate audiences. That's what you want to do now. We moved from broadcasting to horizontal programming, where each channel was, you used to program up the program day, right? 3:30 to 5:30 was women watching soaps. And then Walter Cronkite came on at 5:30 or 6, and that was men. And then the evening was family, and then adults. And then cable brought in horizontal programming. Each channel was women, children, men, on and on and on. That's what we're in now. These games, through the missions, ask you to blend all of your audiences. So it's you're sharing audience. It's not audience share anymore. You share the audience. This was a client in Germany, and I just unveiled this. This is a template. I was just talking to a guy named Bob about this, that delivers, there you are, Bob, delivers missions in packets around specific skill sets. And I'm designing these for education and for corporate training. Our client is AAA, a German corporate training, and we sell and lease these. And the back end includes expiration dates, so you have to finish them within a certain period of time. This is me again, and our team and our advisors. And I didn't take you to, I didn't take you to online, but you can find archives of all the games that I've described. And that's my story.
More collaboration of the audience. The next and final speaker is Ash Marie. He grew up reading classic folklore and fiction such as Tolkien, Chaucer, and Grimm, whose stories, fables, and parables inspired him. Ash has started a new game company called Grimm Bros. He's going to tell us a little bit about what he's doing there. It's really interesting. Ash?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to take this off because I walk around too much. Thanks for having me. Thanks to transmediasf for putting this event together. I'm really excited to be here. So today I'm going to get a quick show of hands. Who in this audience are kind of production, producer folks for either film, television, or multimedia? Excellent, most of you. So a little bit about myself and what you might be able to get out of this presentation. I am 99% games guy. So hopefully you'll get some ideas on what we're going to be doing with transmedia, how we view it, how we're inspired by it, and how we approach it. Let's see. There we go, got it. So our vision, we're creating a new modern IP franchise, darker themed, fairy tale inspired games. Now the great news here is fairy tales span the entire world. It's not just Grimm Brothers. It's not just the Chaucer tales. It's everywhere, right? So a lot of this bleeds in from mythology, from folk tales. And you can see that some of these are classic tales that resonate from one culture to another. So we're taking a lot of these themes, these ideas, and reincarnating them, making them more accessible, making them modern, and we're going to look to build a cross-platform community, going after core gamers and mid-core. Why core? These are people who want deep, rich experiences. So this is not a game that you play because you're bored and you have 5 minutes to kill. This is you actually seeking out a deep, rich, interactive content and being able to do that with friends. Ooh, uh-oh. Let's go back one. All right, excellent. Got it now. So our main approach is, and many times in the gaming industry, someone releases a game, it's a standalone product. It's singular. You rise, you fall, you do well, or you fail, right? We're doing a different approach. What we're saying is, let's create a community. Let's create these fairy tale themed, inspired games and link them to each other. And so we're going to do this through cloud-based technology and make sure that when people engage in these experiences, that we're catering to modern habits, right? You can't just have games on smartphones and tablets that are hours and hours long. It just will not work, right? You have to cater to what people want, their attention span. So we're creating bite-sized game sessions with cross-platform multiplayer. A great example of this, I think Words with Friends, right? Very easy, boom, 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 sending words back and forth. Maybe you have multiple games going at the same time. That's kind of the idea. That's kind of the experience level, the level of engagement we're looking for. People can drop in and drop out. And as, of course, with games like that, you want integrated messaging, so you're able to connect with the person that you're gaming with. If it's just blind connections, then you're not really doing anything interesting. So, and we see that the most interesting thing for us is the PC and tablet community and linking those with our games. There's been a lot of examples of people who have done this in the gaming space. A lot of different products that are fantastic, Battle Bears, Team Fortress 2, League of Legends, but all these are just pinnacles of one platform, mostly PC or their PC or smartphone, right, iOS. They don't actually try to bridge the gap between the two. So I'll just brief over this. Been in the industry for about 14 years. Broke my teeth on a lot of big EA titles. Ooh, go EA. And I've been all over the place. A lot of it by design, pretty much to learn every aspect of game development, from the publishing to indie development to midstream levels. So let's go into the actual game concepts. And our whole idea here is we're giving them a different flavor of a gaming experience, right? This is not revolutionary. I'll be clear about this. This is chicken cordon bleu all over again, but with some wasabi, okay? It's tasty, it's yummy, you're going to enjoy it. Because the idea is that games are meant to be consumed. They're meant for people to get in, have a great time. So let's do that, but with our own little twist to it. So this first product that we have going on, it's codenamed Dungeon X. And the elevator pitch is Tim Burton meets dungeon crawlers. So if I use a lot of gaming terminology, please forgive me, I can explain after the show. But basically, what would happen if Tim Burton was given a small development team and went wild? Well, this is probably what something you might come up with. And so we're inspired by the Grimm classics, such as Little Red Riding Hood. Our character is named Red Robin, so take it, a little bit of a twist, it's public domain, everybody's doing it, right? And this character has deep flaws. So what makes her more interesting is, think a redneck hillbilly with like a serious drinking problem, right? This is Red Robin, and we think that's kind of interesting, right? That's kind of funny. So there's a little video that goes along with this. Kind of shows one of the story missions that we have, that we're running with. track from Beetlejuice, so thank you, Danny. But as you can kind of see, kind of playful, kind of dark, a little bit of black humor. In that little clip there, that little kind of sizzle reel, Red Robin, this is one of the many story missions, but she owns a rum factory. And one day her workers rebel, stealing all her booze. And so she wakes up in a hungover mad craze, and now she's looking to murder the particular people who stole all her stuff and retrieve it. Very fun, wholesome tales. So this is what's now following is some of the game concepts that are coming after Dungeon X. So this one is inspired by Cinderella. Now, excuse the lack of clothing. This is her actually escaping from the test laboratory. For gamers, you think Infinity Blade gameplay meets Victoria's Secrets, right? But the story idea here is very interesting. We're again taking a lot of symbolism from Cinderella. And if you look at Cinderella, it's actually quite grim, pun intended. The sisters in the story chopped off parts of their feet to try to fit into the shoe. Right? The shoe was so coveted. And so here, the shoe is this kind of parasitic, alien, demonic arm, as you can see on her body, that's grabbing into her supernatural powers. There's also some scars on her back. And Cinderella is actually one of the oldest, goes through multiple cultures, but she's a hero. She's a hero character. Eventually, she does find clothes. Don't worry about that. But again, these are things that inspire us. We're saying, what can we do to take this and make this modern? What can we do to make this different? What can we do to make this relevant and cool? So next one is arbor. Some of you have seen, maybe in the movies or even heard about the Hansel and Gretel witch hunter people, right? Okay, that's a nice interpretation. Ours is a little different. So for the gamers in the audience, we're taking Castlevania gameplay meets Mass Effect. Mass Effect, that's a multi-story, choose your own adventure, right? You can choose to go A, B, C, align yourselves with different people, choose different missions with different repercussions. But the story idea here is, again, involved from Hansel and Gretel. You're an outcast law enforcer that discovers an orbital platform that is not what it appears to be. And so just to give away some cheats here, the orbital platform, that's the house. That's the candy-coated house, because it's giving this precious fuel from this planet, right? And that's what attracts all these kind of people and seats to it. And there is an oven as well. Okay, next one. Oops, nope, we're back. Night Watch. This is inspired by the Canterbury Tales. If that's familiar to anybody, all these people are on a pilgrimage, and all of them have stories. And some of them are liars, some of them are corrupt, some of them are idiots, naive, noble. They all have some strong quirk. We said, that's interesting. What if we combine these people in kind of a life and death situation? Think Left 4 Dead, but a little more black humor, right? Or maybe The Walking Dead, if that's more relevant. And so that's what it is. You have this Monte Clou, these flawed characters forced to fight and survive together. This is my favorite one. This is Mariner, inspired by Moby Dick. And for the game pitch is Half-Life meets Final Fantasy boss fight. And so, the story idea is a possibly mad survivor of a shipwreck, armed only with a dive suit and a lifeboat, is going against the Great White Devil. So this is kind of changing the whole idea of what Moby Dick is, right? The symbolism is still there. Just like Isaac, he's mad, he needs to destroy this thing. But is he sane? Is he crazy? Right now we got a little octopus that's kind of cracking the lens on his visor, so you know something's not right there. So all these games, again, are inspired by fairy tales and fables, but where does the transmedia aspect come in? Well, if we're starting with gaming, and that's our core medium, we feel that it's a natural progression to segue out to these other transmedia outlets, whether it's just goods, promotional goods, videos, anime, manga. So one thing that we're doing to grow our community is having persistent elements. So trophies, crafting, rare items, just things that you do in-game matter. It's not just you get in, you get out, and thanks for playing, right? You get able to accumulate these things and carry them with you. And as we accumulate these trophies, these crafting, these rare items, this is an opportunity for us to create these into transmedia products. right? So top players that do a really great job and get the epic set of armor, well, guess what? We're going to send you a figurine, right? It seems cheap, seems like a ploy, but it works. You're rewarding the community for engaging. You're rewarding the community for being a part of it. Gifting and challenges via ghosting. So this is an interesting idea. And again, it's nothing new. But basically, people can gift other players. It's a social viral thing. Everybody likes getting free stuff, right? So you can give your friend some help. But how we're doing it in some of our games is, you play a video game, guess what? You're going to die. It's a matter of a video game. It's going to be hard. But what if you could take, every time you died, what if you could create a ghost? And what if you could then do things with that ghost? Talk to it. Oh God, that was really dumb of me. I really wish I didn't use a wooden stick on a giant werewolf. That just didn't work on me. But you could actually send that ghost to help another friend. Or you can send it to haunt another friend. Right? So again, it's the same things that the mechanics are already there. They're challenges, they're gifting. But it's in a different way, and it's more personable. Because now it's your friend, and you get to see all the things that your friend does, and all the stats that he has, and it makes you want to maybe compete more, or share more. Right? And this becomes a nice mechanic for, again, growing the community and making it sustainable. User-generated content via missions. So again, this kind of feeds up into the persistent elements, such as crafting. So you're going to craft that epic armor set. So you can actually be able to post in what would be almost like an auction house. Say, hey, I really need 6 dragon scales, right? And I'm willing to pay you 1,000 gold per dragon scale. Well, that's a pretty good quest, right? So you go off, you complete that mission, and you feel like someone, both sending it out and receiving it, is rewarded. You're rewarded because now you have materials to craft that epic armor set. And the other person in the community gets the actual financial reward. And they both had fun doing it, right? That's a very, very interesting thing. Community-based skill contests. So very famously, League of Legends does this. These are actual cash prizes, huge events, thousands of people attend these, right? You see these gamers, they got their headsets on, they're all into the game. That's exactly what we're going to look to do, but maybe not on that scope, right? We're going to actually have skill-based contests. And again, reward them with actual not only monetary goods, but physical goods. Hey, here's a t-shirt and a check for $1,000. Good job. Keep on playing. And last but not least, we're going to listen to the community. We're going to do polls, we're going to do events, all online, to really kind of get their feedback to see what they want to see next. Right? We do believe each game has a life cycle, but that being said, you can greatly extend it. Right? So expansion packs. Maybe everybody's really excited about steampunk. Okay, steampunk it is, and here it comes. As long as it's modern, relevant, and it still fits in the world that we're creating, of these kind of fairy tale themes, we think the users will really enjoy this. And so again, our core base is games, is this online platform, but the tendrils can reach out everywhere. I think that's it. Now, I think I'm waiting to do QA with the other panelists, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So unless somebody really wants one question while we're setting up.
Burning desires, anybody?
Any desires?
Bueller? Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
This is very interesting. I think when we were thinking about how to curate an evening about mythology, it's not an easy subject because the subject is so big. And I think these three are a great segment of what's possible. And there's a great intersection of all these different worlds of what's happening with the way we're creating mythology. And we really enjoyed this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So I've got a few questions, but if anybody wants to ask, please raise your hand. I think I'm going to start with a question for the three of you. How do you harness the masses to create the new mythology and make our projects, our platforms, successful while still keeping the integrity with your audience?
I think that's probably an evolving thing, something, because a lot of this is so new. But what I've noticed from my experience and some of my work is as I mentioned in my talk, it's the activation. What is that piece that is really, really important, whether it be to a community or a niche group or just an individual that's going to get them excited enough to go out there and participate in it. And I think some of those topics, whether it be sustainability, whether it be consciousness, art, a variety of different things that we may not even know about, but it's something that is truly valuable for that individual to push them. And one of the things that we want to do with this Mythify experience and this interactive aspect is give people a possibility to make a living on this site. So we put all of our content out there, and yes, it's exciting to them, and it's something that drives them and pushes them to go make a change. But now they can also have distribution of the product that they just created on that site. So now it's not just something that is a personal desire, but it's also a way to bring income into them as well. So I think that can also be a way to get people moving a little bit, but there's also that conscious element to it as well. So you're gonna go do some good, but you'll be able to go make a little money and survive.
So discoverability is a huge, huge issue. How do you gain an audience? How do you start the community? So one of the things we're doing is we're taking all the traditional media that's out there. So we got YouTube, we got websites, we got everything. And we're saying, okay, well, why do the same thing that's been done before? So we're just going to gamify everything. So we're looking at YouTube, and we're saying, hey, how can we gamify YouTube? Do a brief, maybe 12-part series where maybe users comment or vote on what the character does next. Okay, that's kind of fun. What if we launch a website that's actually a story? And in order to find out what happens next in the story, it segue naturally leads you into purchasing the game, right? Again, this is nothing new. This has all been done before, but it's just the approach of it, right? Just having a unified approach. The biggest thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not nickel and diming the users, the players. The freemium movement is huge. It's here to stay. I made some freemium games. I have friends who've made a lot of money in that space. But that's not what we're doing. We're offering kind of deep, rich content, and we think that by itself, executed well, is going to be a strong allure. And then we just got to make sure that we get in front of the right users. So we're not doing the shotgun approach. We're advertising all these channels. We're going to selectively pick 1, 2, 3 channels, vocal core players, gamify the channels, the things that we are doing, the websites, the YouTube videos, and then grow it from there.
So one of the things that I'm thinking of is that, stars and sex. And those are traditional elements that, in a way, are parts of the story, and I'm trying to reach out for very mainstream kinds of storytelling in lots of ways. I want you to be involved in the stories that I create, but I also I want to make the game to be part of every inch of the promotion of the game as well. For instance, with the first game, with the Ghosts game, ABC.com interviewed me, but I only would agree, and they wanted somebody to come out and take a picture of me. So they took a picture of me, but I said I would only have a picture that had a clue embedded in the media, so that it was pervasive, and the clue was there for anyone to see who was playing the game. ABC, actually, that was a magazine. Then ABC.com did a story, and I said, well, the only way, I want you to be able to click on something in the photograph that you're going to use of my logo for the game, and that's going to give you an audio clue. So I'm surrounding you with the game. And then what I meant by stars and sex was, I am a movie buff, and I grew up on TV and movies, and the kinds of games that I see reflect a certain interest of mine. And I say this at a lot of meetings, I want musicals. I want romantic comedies. These games have the room for that. And once we start doing that, then these are going to become much more mainstream. I literally want people, I mean, I'm speaking with a former partner of mine who writes for Broadway, and he said, well, how do you do production numbers? I said, well, that's easy, that's crowds, that's, you know, that's really easy. And he said, well, yeah, but what about the expertise? I said, well, at the core, you have great dancers who are doing the flash mob that everybody else is doing. And then he said, well, then how do you do intimate moments? And I said, well, that's done on the cell phone. You're calling players with intimate scenes because it's one-on-one or two-on-one. Again, everything is posted to the game. So does that, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I want to surround you with the game.
That's all great answers.
My question's for Ash. I was wondering, like, you said that you gamify a lot of the social media stuff that you guys do, and I was curious if you had any specific percentages or numbers as far as like how much that's actually increased your awareness, engagement, and advocacy. Like,
Sure. So those are pending. So I'll share with you the results as soon as we do them and let you know how well it worked out. But both, I think our two main efforts right now is the website and the YouTube series. And then on top of that, we're going to go look to do presence at conventions, Comic-Con and PAX. And what we're going to do there is kind of, is anyone in the audience familiar with cosplay LARPing? Yeah, there we go. So again, we're going to gamify that as well, right? So, but again, maybe one of the characters will be Red Robin, right? So we'll provide Red Robin, and you get to be one of the monsters, and go.
Great moments on. Yeah. And then.
Okay. All right. John, I was wondering in terms of the games that you've been doing, and you've been, it's really, I love that you've been using physical spaces. I haven't seen anything with geolocation, not that your games need them at this stage, but have you decided, is that a conscious decision, or is it something that you want to do, or has some in the works?
Yes. anything is possible with these. Anything, as long as you can craft the narrative to be sort of, to distribute through geocaching, let's say. But yes, and the other thing that I always feel is that my games are always potentially global, always. And again, as you're aggregating audiences, and that's a niche audience, those people who follow that, then yeah, go after those. So it's always, it's often budget constraints too.
I was just about to ask what there are any obstacles.
But no, I don't. And I think the stars part of Stars and Sex that I was talking about was that these games can also involve that, because that opens the audience once you've got somebody. This Broadway game that we're trying to put together, for instance, I want to use real recognizable people and use their lives and lie about them and create parts for them, but them playing themselves.
Mine's for Mitch. You're an advocate, I guess, of DMT.
I wouldn't go that far.
Wouldn't be an advocate. So how do you see it playing into discovering mythology, your own personal mythology? How is it something as a tool to be used, or what's its use?
I'm always cautious with being an advocate necessarily. It's for one, it's an illegal compound, so I don't want to go out there and tell people to go out and use this. I also don't think it's for everybody, but what we have seen throughout history, people have been using these compounds, and very much so for mythological purposes and to connect with ancestors, the other side, whatever that is. And I think it gives a lot of purpose, it gives a lot of meaning to the rest of the world around you, beyond just that conscious state of, the old New Age saying everything is connected. Well, you really get that, under the influence of DMT or ayahuasca, and it's not just a saying anymore. You get to really physically feel it, emotionally. So I was living a pretty fast and reckless life before I had my experience with DMT. And it changed everything within 10 minutes. There was a lot of putting the pieces back together because you don't just have an experience like that where everything gets shattered. And then you come right back out and you're like, okay, well, the world's different, I'm gonna go on about my way. I had to start to figure out my personal mythology. You know, what was I doing in the world? How was I treating my friends and my family? How was I treating myself? So I think there can be a way for psychedelics and entheogens, whatever the term is that people like, to help them get in touch with themselves, but also get back in touch with who we are as a human species. I think we've separated ourselves from nature. We don't feel like we're a part of it anymore, that we can control it, dominate it. And I think that's been one of the biggest parts of our destruction, as we're starting to see. We can no longer do that. It's not a sustainable practice. And I don't think that it's happen chance that these things are starting to pick up right now when we see all these institutions collapsing. People are starting to look for answers. The political system's falling apart, religions are falling apart. People have had that comfortability there, and now they're going away. They're learning there's a lot of BS behind some of that. So I guess to get back around to your question, I don't go out and say that everybody should go do this by any means. I do look at, from my own personal experience, what it's done for my life, and also what has happened because of Dr. Strassman's research with the DMT, is it has now opened up research again in the United States and in the Western world for that matter. So they're looking at LSD trials for cluster headaches and migraines. They're doing post-traumatic stress work for soldiers and women that have been abused with MDMA. There's ayahuasca work that's coming up. There's new DMT research coming up. So this isn't just a bunch of hippies getting high. There's an actual purpose for it, and people are actually reconnecting with, whether it be their own personal mythology, whether it be their mythology or their religion that they came from growing up, or a new discovery of a personal mythology. So it changed me, as I said, and I speak from that space today more than anything. So,
thank you.
I hope that answered that.
Yes, actually, one question that I definitely have is, we're having all these tools, we have these games, we have all this technology at the tip of our hands, and a lot of times what happens is, also with UGC, and you probably all have had that experience, if you put out your content for people to actually use and do their own interpretation, and it comes back very negative. And we had a Google guy a few months ago, I think in September, and they said they had an interactive animation tool online. Came back the next day, 24 hours later, and all the drawings were penises. And they had to actually start putting something into the engine to actually see how they can make it, more, PG and all that. So when we have all these tools at the tip of our hands, how do we actually empower the users to create positive stories, create a positive mythology, create a positive outcome, even if we're dealing with the darkness, but how do we get into the light? Does that happen? Is that an issue that can be resolved, or we are always going to have both sides of the coin? But I think a lot of the times what I see is, I think right now what we're seeing, especially with the happenings that happened in the last few months, is that one really bad experience happens and the internet answers with a lot of positivity, some negativity, but a lot of positivity. But as curators of our platforms and as creators, how do we help our audience get there?
So when you release a game, there's always a disclaimer that you have to put at the front of it that online experiences may change your game, right? It may not be the same. So even though it's T-rated, if someone's going to start yelling profanities online, well, you can't control that. So there are some things you can do. It really depends per platform. So one is you do embrace everything. It's Wild West, and you appoint the community as sheriffs, right? So you say, you're an admin, you're an admin, you're an admin. These are people who are part of the community, and you say, hey, if someone's mouthing off or bad behavior, you can ban them, right? So you empower the community to do that. The other way to go about it is, and that's you see that a lot in the PC space. In the mobile space, like iOS, you're going to have to do what I call the cookie cutter solution, which is you can't allow people to say whatever they want, but they can pick from drop-downs. Hello, I'm grumpy. I want this thing, and I'll award you this amount of gold for it, and this is your reward, and this is some type of snarky emoticon I'm going to put on there. So you give them enough tools to be self-expressive and create new content, but it's with a very limited, pre-selected array of comments and things you can say and do. So you can still have some personality, but it is restrictive.
My team and myself have been thinking about this a lot, especially coming from the conscious media space. What our whole purpose is to go out there and start to make some tangible changes in the world on a variety of different levels. So right off the bat, I'm hoping that just the content itself and the purpose gives us a good starting point for that. The curation aspect is how we're seeing this thing starting to evolve, where people that are involved in each one of these projects, and then just people in the community, Alex Gray or Graham Hancock and other people that we partner up with, having them kind of push content out, push out their creativity, get people involved on top of our content and their creativity. They can help start to guide some of this, and hopefully it builds that base. I'm also in line with Ash, though, that there is, once we start censoring, I believe that becomes an issue as well. So how do you walk that line of letting things take place and then letting them work themselves out, which I think is part of what we're trying to do in the world all the time. But I think the community, as you said, it really starts to come back to the community, and we encourage the community to speak up when somebody does something that we don't feel is in alignment with what we're trying to do. How do we get Joe Blow, that's in the middle of nowhere, but is a very active community member, and it puts in a lot of positive aspects to this experience? Give them some of that power to say, hey, maybe not ban them, or maybe so, but what can you do to switch your language a bit, have them take a different perspective, and then let the rest of the community know that this is not okay, or this isn't something that we will support on a regular basis, and hopefully that alone starts to change people's perception and gets them to utilize the media in a responsible way. So
I like that wording that you said, this is something we cannot support on a continuing basis. Let me last word.
So, yeah, exactly.
No, that was really good phrase.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I'm dealing with this in my community too, and I find that band people, it tends to come back to you like a ghost. It never really goes away. It's some people will seek out to be banned.
There are a lot of trolls out there.
And that's the troll personality, but it's also sometimes a very creative personality that somehow a friend of mine has said is kind of an unsocialized puppy. Who's never learned other strategies to gain attention.
Sure.
And we've seen a lot of tragedies in the last few years in society people like that. So especially in a creative society, we really want to push people to that edge. So I'm wondering, in the community, when you have left it up to the community, so people come up with something more creative than banning or more complex. I mean, when I was working with kids years ago, my first job, one of the things they would do is somebody violated the rules, they would be timed out, kind of a banning. And they had a place for them to be timed out. And then there would always be remorse among the community for banning them, and someone would say, well, this is too hard, I'll go sit with you. And then they would actually physically bring them back into the group when they decided the time was up. I looked it up to them. So, and I say,
Can we just actually reflect back, and I'm sorry, we should have given Claudia mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
Quickly reflect back what she was saying so that everyone can share.
I'm going to look at
We have the audience in the...
I was just addressing the idea, I really like the flow where this conversation's going about what can you do when people sort of act out, or as labels called a troll. Because I'm dealing with that right now in my community, and I think banning is something that just doesn't necessarily give you the result you would really like. So what other creative things have people done besides banning?
Thank you.
Just two quick comments. And one example of this idea of banning, I don't know, everybody's probably familiar with TED. Rand Hancock just did a talk on there recently called The War on Consciousness. Well, he mentioned ayahuasca, and TED pulls the talk and is no longer allowed on TED. TED is about opening up new ideas and exchanging new ideas. The war on consciousness, and then it gets wiped off. The community was up in arms. Like, why are we taking somebody that's coming out here and then we're taking them off after we've already invited them here to come do a talk? And I've come to the place now, and I kind of see it because of this and some other things, that I trust the community. There was a story recently that on social media, amongst all of us, there are more positive stories that are being put out than there are on the nightly news. Makes sense, but it's something that's just gotten touched on. So I'm starting to feel like we want change. You know, even if you live on the far right and you have this particular viewpoint on whether it may be from fracking to take some money from people, we as a community and we as a global group, I think, want change. And I think for the most part, the numbers are changing to make a difference there, as opposed to continuing the same kind of downward spiral. Jump on that, but that was something that jumped out to me. It was trusting the community on that.
To kind of pull the community.
Another question over there?
It's a simple question entirely.
Okay.
My question is for John. So it seems like there's sort of two ways.
Yeah, it is, because the games were never planned to be that linear or to be enacted in one place.
Okay.
They emanated from the museum. Actually, one of the interesting things about the Smithsonian Games was that one of the things, the only thing that they wanted was footfall. They wanted bodies coming through the doors. And what they didn't understand, and the most successful thing that we gave to them, was that we inhabited their digital space. And they'd never even considered that their digital space was habitable. So, so it's not necessarily, the bricks and mortar. It's not it's not place location. I mean, you can have great live events. You can do very surprising theatrical things where you ask people to mass and do things. But basically, games, real transmedia for me is it starts at a live event, it morphs to your cell phone, it goes to your tablet, it goes to your desktop, it goes back to a museum, it goes, it flows, it just all flows.
Right, okay.
Acoustic space, right?
Acoustic space. Let's as we round up to finish the evening, couple more questions. Actually, I was looking at Ash because I wrote down a question, and then you even showed that you're actually also going to have Hansel and Gretel, and I was looking at how much Grimm there is out there right now. How many Grimm tales? There's the Grimm TV show, there's Once, there's Snow White, and the Huntsman, there's Miramira, there's Hansel and Gretel, Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters, and Get Baked. The same year. And now Your Awesome Game World, and it's beyond just Grimm. It's this return to folklore, return to mythology, from Buffy and Xena to where we are today. It's a question to all three of you. Why are we still in the same stories? And I know that Jung actually, they mapped the fact that we all are here, we map our consciousness around heroes, mentors, jesters, and of course, Campbell took it to the hero's journey and really showed the prototype, the blueprint of mythology, of myth. But from your different aspects, why are we still telling the same story? And are we ever going to evolve from the story? Or maybe a better question is, how do we evolve to the next story?
So I'm going to give the academic answer first, and then what I believe is the commercial answer second. Academically, it's the human experience. The whole spectrum of human experience, the range of emotions we engage in, jealousy, anger, love, torment, suffering, longing, all these feelings. The parables, both dark and good and bad. Trusting others, not trusting others. Hard work pays off, cheating doesn't. These are parables mixed in with the human experience. So a parable is a story with a lesson, but with human actors. A fable is also a story, but it has animal actors, magic, stuff like that. So that's the academic answer. The commercial answer is Hollywood, the game industry, and everyone in entertainment. Unfortunately, we're in a highly derivative industry. People, and this is psychologically based, we buy what we know. We buy what's familiar. If someone presents you a dish that you've never seen before, it kind of smells good, but you have no idea what kind of meat is in it or vegetables, you're probably not going to eat it. You're probably going to be like, oh, that's interesting. But if it's something familiar, oh, okay, that's chicken, but you put pineapple on top, oh, that's different, then you might be more less susceptible to try it. We're hungry for content, we're hungry for new things, but we're not going to go that far from what we're familiar with. So that's why there's all these sequels in the game industry. Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 4, all these World War II games. You keep seeing them, and World War II will never go away. You're going to keep seeing this again and again. And you see this shift back to fables because, again, this is something that collectively, across multiple cultures, we're familiar with, right? And so all we do is take that familiarity, tweak it, and guess that, oh, it's suddenly new. Let's do the Grimm TV show, right? And so that's my answer.
The reason I was drawn to the games that I have been working on is that they were the first games that I found that had beginnings, middles, and ends. And when you have beginnings, middles, and ends, then you're back to the metaphysics. And you're back to the notion of heroes and villains. And so that's something that's core, that's at our core. And those make stories possible. So I think that's why we keep pulling from those. To amplify what Ash is saying, my years working in and around Hollywood, everyone thinks that LA is a very progressive place. It was the most reactive town I've ever lived in. And we were just talking about this before this afternoon. It's the anomaly that is the hit. The anomaly is the hit. And then they spend the next 2 decades ripping off the anomaly. It's much easier to do it. And then I have one other thing, one observation I had, and I don't know if you would agree or not, but 2008 really affected me. What happened with the financial industry and how much it still controls and how big this does control our lives. Because I suddenly awakened one day and I said, what is all this vampire and zombie stuff? What is going on? And I suddenly realized we are playing out. We all know. We are. We know we're not in charge. And that Goldman Sachs is the vampire squid. And do you know what I mean? And we know it. We know it in our gut. And creators know it, and the audience knows it. And everyone is gravitating toward it because it's a story that at the moment makes a lot of sense. That you're being eaten alive. And there's not much you can do about it except have the hero with the stake or what cures zombies? You just shoot them. Oh, right. So, all right. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that was my observation about it. And I think, by the way, I think it's fading. And because I think the awareness, I think Occupy drew on that and was a very, very important educational tool and demystified the financial community so that people could understand it. And the more knowledge and information you get, the less of the bogeyman is out there, the more power you have. So, and I like the fact that it's morphing back into fables and fairy tales, and because those seem to have a pureness of storytelling to me. And the zombies and the vampires are interesting enough, but they, I can't explain it. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that it all suddenly became zombies and vampires.
Well, with the zombies and vampires too, I think really over the last decades, I've been kind of watching the mediascape. There's been a whole emergence of supernatural style storytelling, where I think as science starts to open up some of these new dimensions and new possibilities, we need to start putting those into our stories. And I think the return to some of these original fables and some of these original allegories are in response to that. That's what our ancestors were trying to do. They were trying to understand what was happening in the natural world, putting some sort of a face on that, whether it be an animal or whether it be a thunder god or rabid from the but I'm under the impression that yes, there are core stories that are there, but I do believe we are telling new stories. I think we're already there. We are an emergent population. Our technology, our consciousness, our society, we are constantly growing into something new. There are more and more possibilities, it's more and more complex. And although we're using these past stories, they are different. They have their core, there are new possibilities and there are new outcomes that are built into those. And that we don't have to be controlled by just this, again, top-down approach. We all have our personal experiences that are just as powerful as HBO and these other big storytellers that are out there. And the technology is now there that we can share those stories and reference these fables or reference other stories that have been traditional throughout all cultures, but now start to share them on a broader scale. So I think we are there.
Yeah, I think we're getting there finally. So I'd like to thank you three for joining us tonight and shedding some of your wisdom. Thank you all. We have a few more announcements, so don't get up just yet.
Let's thank our panelists.
Can we get to the next slide?
There we go. Oh, yay.
Hey. You want to do this one, Mike?
Yeah.
So just again, I want to thank everybody here. What an amazing presentation. We had sex, drugs, and a little bit of rock and roll, but we can all rock and roll it ourselves as we carry it on because this will be collaborative. And I'm so pleased to announce that we're actually, by popular demand, we've been asked to start running some workshops. And we have the indomitable Josh Rose, who will be teaching a workshop on how to make your product viral. It is not just luck. You can actually program it, plan it, design it. And he's actually going to be teaching a workshop with us, and you can come along on May the 14th. So please join us, and there's a discount for our members of 25%. We have another workshop. Yes, can I get the next one, please? That is actually free, and we're really excited about this because it's a cool new tool, and our objective is really to bring you cool new tools. Cool new tools, techniques, and technologies. And this is Cover Page. This is coming out of Slovakia. This team is amazing. They've done this amazing thing that can actually help you build a quick app or even a simple game. So come and join us on May the 15th. Both the event at the 14th and the 15th will be at our partner's place at Yeti Zen Innovation Labs, not too far from here. So look for these emails and join us. TransmediaSF for a discount for the first one. And the second one is completely hosted and sponsored, so it's free for Cover Page. And we also, I don't know if Paul is here, Whitney had to leave, have a third workshop that we're announcing, focusing on brands and ads. And Whitney is a brand master, worked at Apple and Google among other, but I think that she spent like 12 years at Apple. They know how to market themselves. And they're really great at transmedia and selling their brand. She's going to be teaching a workshop on transmedia brands and how to create the transmedia process around your brand. So again, you can use the discount code transmediasf for that if you're interested. Oh, finally, looking to announce our next meetup. We hope that you'll join us for that. And that is going to be, again, on brands and ads and campaigns. And we're doing that at the San Francisco School of Digital Filmmaking. which is over at 925 Mission Street. They're another one of our partners. Happy to be working with them. And so we'll look forward to seeing you there. It's, you know, the workshops, obviously, they're workshops. There's no beer and wine. We do provide some soft drinks, but you know, these networking events, we're really looking forward to getting everybody out, and we're happy to see the big crowds, so we hope that we see you. This is a slightly different date for us. We usually do the last Monday of the month. Because the last Monday of May is Memorial Day, we know you'll be busy. We're doing this on Thursday that week, so we'll look forward to seeing you there. Thank you. And, well, we always need help. And if anybody wants to work with us, help us, we're looking right now for web designers, bloggers, and content managers. We're going to be upgrading, we are upgrading our website, and we really want to start having much more rich transmedia experience on our website. So we'd love to hear from you. Also looking for guest bloggers, if anybody's interested to posting on our website. It goes all around. We also have a lot of community, global transmedia community partners that we can repost blogs to. So talk to me or talk to Beth afterwards, and thank you very much. So one other thing, you know, we invite our members of our community to come up and announce their transmedia projects. And you can sign up to do this on our website. And I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and anybody else that wants to